Greetings, my fellow freedom lovers and sovereign thinkers. Sorry about that. Thank you for tuning in to L3 Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy mangroves of South Florida. And today's date is Friday, December 20th, 2019. Yes, and see all the little Christmas lights here, the cute little trees. I'm at Stash, located at 110's, is it 110? 109, one of those areas. Southwest 2nd Avenue in the heart of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, adjacent with America's Backyard and Revolution Live. Yeah, it's a little quiet out here. Cool little coffee shop. Alex is in the house. Talking about a few things, football and all that, and politics. We always mix it up now and then, but it's all in good fun. Yeah, so, while everyone's getting distracted with the whole impeachment thing, I noticed too Nancy Pelosi had that glare like, yeah, we gotta get him. He's not part of our little team. We need all the her conformists, all the insecure hacks get together and rally against one man. Even though we may have things in common, but we hate it when he calls us out. Yeah, and even Tulsi Gabbard was the only one that said present because she believes he's guilty of wrongdoings. However, she made a statement that, she couldn't really have a conscience on impeaching him. See, some people, they call her a coward, Gabbard, and it looks like she reconsidered because when she did vote for House Resolution 660, which is a bill of attainder proclamation, and right there she chose poorly. So that's how I look at it. But to be very sincere, even for a man who's not a Trump lover, this is just another bill of attainder. Andrew Johnson revisited? Oh yeah, I have to talk about that. A little history lesson of his case. However, when everyone's like wigging out over the impeachment, a couple of interesting things are happening. Actually, one event, another one I've done a while back, and one gentleman put more details into it, which is good. So I'm going to address his report also. So this one here came from the legal insurrection. It says here, while everyone was focused on impeachment, Fifth Circus cut the legs from under Obamacare. This is by William A. Jacobson. Keep out. The 18th. So, fortunately, I should have known about this, but sometimes we all got so much havoc going around the country and the world. Some of these articles coming right under our noses. So I'm gonna read this. It's very good stuff here. It says here, a year ago, almost to the day, we reported that the Texas federal judge held that the Obamacare individual mandate was unconstitutional after Republicans repealed the mandate tax, which was a justification for the Supreme Court upholding the mandate in 2012, and 2, the mandate was not severable from the rest of the law, so the entire law fell. It was a full defeat of Obamacare. Federal judge kills Obamacare. And as it says here, Reno O'Connor, a federal judge in the Northern District of Texas, just killed Obamacare. If the ruling holds up on the appeal, Obamacare is dead. As a doorknob, not just the mandate or some other particular provisions. He killed the whole thing. And it continues here, the Fifth Circuit just 1 upheld the ruling that the mandate is unconstitutional, but 2 remanded to the district court for further consideration of severability. So perhaps the headline today is not that the First Circuit killed Obamacare, but rather the Fifth Circuit cut the legs from under Obamacare. When the entire legalist law falls is yet to be determined. And you can read the 98-page opinion on here, and according to this, like multiple states were involved in this matter. So that's really intriguing because I was looking at this. And it's very interesting, very cool, and like multiple. Let me see how many states are who are involved in this, involved in this petition. I know Florida is one of them, Texas, Ohio, Oklahoma, but you can read it. It's very cool. So I was happy about that. And it says here, first there is a live case or controversy because of the intervenor defendant states have standing to appeal, and if they did not, there remains a live case or controversy between the plaintiffs and the federal defendants. The second, the plaintiffs have Article 3 standing to bring this challenge to the ACA. The individual mandate injures both the individual plaintiffs by requiring them to buy insurance that they do not want, and the state plaintiffs by increasing their cost of complying with the reporting requirements that accompany the individual mandate. Third, the individual mandate is unconstitutional because it can no longer be read as a tax, and there is no other constitutional provision that justifies this excess congressional power. Fourth, the severely asked question remand to the district court to provide additional analysis of the provisions of the ACA as they currently exist. And it's funny because I actually examined this 900+ page debacle. That's why I call it. If people actually read this, they'll be up in arms like, what the hell you think you're doing? But a lot of folks assume because they read a list of the lobbyist groups and the bobbleheads on the TV coming up out of the teleprompters rather than their own conscience. So we can proceed here. Of course, there's Brad Morehouse for ACA supporters. Nothing positive in this ruling by the Fifth Circuit. The panel sided the GOP in declaring the AC individual mandate unconstitutional and remands a final decision on what parts of the law should fall to the judge who already said it should all go. Well, it's plain and simple. I don't know what he's trying to use. He likes to use this. Mr. Woodhouse likes to use this whole partisan politics, political faction rhetoric. And the bottom line is this: how does it supersede my 9th and 10th Amendment rights, or natural rights to be exact, as I have to buy insurance or I'll be condemned? What am I convicted of? Can we say bill of attainder? Violate due process? Damn right. Article 1, Sections 9 and 10 of the U.S. Constitution makes that clear. All right, and of course, Mr. Norman Orison said, while impeachment is moving along, there is a huge story happening alongside it. 2 radical right-wing judges on the Fifth Circuit Court have fundamentally declared the Affordable Care Act unconstitutional, while they have sent back the case to the trial judge to determine exactly which parts of the law should be blown up, and it's entirely like the big issue in the 2020 election will be health care. Democrats better find a way to unite on their message because they have a huge advantage here that they could further away. How can we say fear is the greatest weapon? Of course, my friends, of course. That's why you gotta always have to see these areas in a broader picture than what it is. Why is that? It's like a form of conscription. They'll try to harass you, nag you. What's going to be next? Pointing guns at your head to buy health care or else? Absolutely. Dumb down Debbie Wasserman Schultz cannot attest to that. She'll lie to her teeth like the rest of the politicians, but will tell someone that the one individual is unfit for office. Can we talk about doublespeak, hypocrisy to the core? That's right. Dumb down Debbie and Ted Deutsch and all the clowns out there who believe they're above the law. But see, here's the thing. They ask, if you defy this, they say, oh, you're above the law? Shoot, I'm not above the law. I endorse natural law. You don't. I'm not a corporation. I'm a natural-born person. There's a big difference there, folks. So what I'm going to try to do here is, let's just take a little look. If I could get that whole thing on this. Okay, yeah, federal kill. Yeah, right here. Came out yesterday. Federal judge killed Obamacare. Yeah, so, yeah, there's a link for that about Reed O'Connor. It came out on the 14th, and you could just put that link on from that one article I just announced. Reed O'Connor, federal judge in Northern District, Texas, just killed Obamacare. If the ruling holds on appeal, Obamacare is dead. killed the whole thing. Of course, the order is here's a short version. I'll just summarize it. You get the order on there full force. Here's a short version. Texas and other states sued to declare the individual mandate unconstitutional because the recent tax refund penalty for failing to pay the mandate was removed. Second Amendment complaint here. With the removal of the mandate penalty, the mandate no longer was a function of Congress, taxing power, which was the basis upon which Roberts and the liberal justices on the Supreme Court upheld the constitutionality of the mandate in 2012. The court, conservative and Roberts, had ruled that mandate violated their Commerce Clause, but Roberts broke with the conservatives on the tax power issue. But there's more. The district court ruled that the mandate was an essential and inseparable part of Obamacare because mandate was held to be unconstitutional and inseparable. The judge held the remainder of Obamacare to be unconstitutional. The court did not grant an injunction, so the Trump administration is under no obligation to terminate programs under Obamacare until the order holds up on appeal. From the order, resolution of these claims rests a intersection of the ACA, the Supreme Court's decision, NIFB, and the TCJA. In NFIB, the Supreme Court held the individual mandate was unconstitutional under the Interstate Commerce Clause, but could fairly be read as an exercise of Congress's tax power because it triggered the tax. The TCJA eliminated that tax. The Supreme Court's reasoning in NIFB buttresses by other binding precedent and plain text, thus compels the conclusion that the individual mandate may no longer be upheld under the tax power. And because the individual mandate continues to mandate the purchase of health insurance, it remains unsustainable under the Interstate Commerce Clause, as the Supreme Court already held. Finally, Congress stated many times, unequivocally, through an enacted text signed by the President, that the individual mandate is essential to the ASA. And this essential, the ASA makes clear, means the mandate must work together with the other provision for the Act to function as intended. All 9 justices refused the ACA acknowledge this in this text, and Congress manifest intent to establish the individual mandate as the ACA's essential provision. The current and previous administrations have recognized that too, because rewriting the ACA without its essential feature is beyond the power of an Article III court. The court thus adheres to Congress's textually expressed intent in binding Supreme Court precedent to find the individual mandate inseparable from the ACA's remaining provisions. Construing the plaintiff's application for a preliminary injunction, the ECF number 39, as a motion for partial summary judgment, the court therefore denies plaintiff's requested for an injunction but grants summary judgment on the count 1 of the amended complaint. More, it says here, the court today finds the individual mandate is no longer fairly readable as an exercise of Congress's tax power and continues to be unsustainable under Congress's interstate commerce power. The court therefore finds the individual mandate unmoored from a tax is unconstitutional and grants plaintiff's claim for a declaratory relief as to count 1 of the amended complaint. Applying these standards, the court finds the 2010 Congress expressed through plain text and unambiguous intent that the individual mandate not be severed from the ASA. Supreme Court President supports that finding, and the passing the TCJA through the reconciliation process. The 2017 Congress further entrenched the intent manifested by the 2012 Congress. Also, Congress stated 3 separate times that the individual mandate is essential to the ASA 25. That is once, twice, 3 times, and plainly is also stated the absence of the individual mandate would undercut its regulation of the health insurance market. 13 different times, Congress explained how the individual mandate stood as a keystone of the ASA, and 6 times, Congress explained it was not the individual mandate, but the individual mandate together with the provisions that allow the ASA to function as Congress intended. On the ambiguous enacted text alone, the court finds the individual mandate is inseverable from the act to which it is essential. 28. It goes on and on and on, but I'm almost done here. Hold on here. In some, Congress passed a minimum coverage provision as a key component of the ACA. ID 8599, Ginsburg J. joined Breyer, Kagan, and Sotomayor J.J. At 539 majority. This case concerns constitutional challenges to two key provisions, commonly referred to as the individual mandate and the Medicaid expansion, not a key component of the guaranteed issue and community rating provisions, but of the ACA. The Supreme Court only reasoning on this topic that supports what the text says. The individual mandate is essential to the ACA. In some, the individual mandate is so interwoven with the ACA's regulation that they cannot be separate. None of them can stand. That's a Wallace case. U.S. 259, U.S. at 70. The court finds the individual mandate is essential to and inseverable from other provisions of the ACA. This is just a summarized version, so this is very interesting here. So I think it's damn good, because the truth of the matter is, friends, if you study history, but the whole healthcare crisis, what worsened it was the HMO Act, the Health Maintenance Organization Act of 1973, which was passed by Congress, and Richard Nixon signed it into law. And in due time, everything started to increase, and of course, you had fiat money started again around 1971 under President Nixon, and you could thank Arthur Burns for that as well. So those are the facts. You can look it up yourselves. One thing I like to say, it is a 9th and 10th Amendment issue, and plus you can say if they're going to try to tax you or fine you for not paying these things, that's considered a civil matter, but due process. Article 1, Sections 9 and 10 of the U.S. Constitution. Bill of Attainder and due process. You can re-examine due process, Federalist Papers 64 by Hamilton. That'd be a good thing to look for. Well, you know what? I'm happy about this, and we'll see how far this goes. And the bottom line is this, my friends: the government needs us more we need them, and that's the damn truth. That's what liberty is about. Not be enslaved or be a number. We're all beautiful human beings here. Not just in these United States, because I call these United States as a republic, not the corporation, but the beautiful folks around the world. All right? Something to really look at, and we'll just have to see how far this baby goes. So, and Legal Insurrection did a good job on this, so I always give them kudos for this article. And we're going to do one more here. I'll make this one pretty cool. I talked about this one already. However, Kurt Nemo from the Kurt Nemo blog, it's entitled Another Day in the Empire, and it came out a couple days ago. It says here, Israel and Trump's executive order killing free speech. It's official. If you dispossession, murder, torture, and slow motion ethnic cleansing of Palestinians disgusting and criminal. You are an anti-Semite. If you organize like-minded folks and urge others to boycott Israeli products, you may end up in prison. It's okay to criticize official enemies, Iran, Syria, Venezuela, North Korea, Russia, China, for imaginary crimes such as chemical weapons attacks in Syria and Russia meddling election rigs and prearranging by a hidden elite. But if you're flirting with serious danger when you talk about the truth about Israel, Trump worked around this scheme of prearranged elections, and this has resulted in mass mental illness now known as the Trump derangement syndrome. And this is funny because you don't see people in Congress want to impeach him for this. That's okay. You know why? Because they're on the same playing field. Herd conformity 101. Property of the Israeli regime, or the lobbyist groups, or the foreign agents. You know what I'm talking about. Anti-Defamation League, AIPAC, we can go on and on. So we'll continue on here. In America, the state and its media have done an effective job of disappearing wars and downplaying or straight out ignoring the Pentagon's heavy records of lies and evasion. The Department of Defense officials have largely brushed aside questions surrounding reports that U.S. officials lied about progress in the 18-year Afghan war, with experts saying it is unlikely the documents will change the administration's approach to long-running conflict, The Hill reported earlier this week. America's longest war, a bonanza for death merchants, was based on a stupendous lie. Osama bin Laden was hiding out in Afghanistan, and Taliban were intransigent about turning him over. So war was the only viable option, according to the official story. It's never mentioned that the Taliban, a creation of the CIA and Pakistani intelligence, offered to turn over the Saudi, but the Bush neocons refused the offer. That's under the Clinton administration, Bill Clinton administration as well. Remember, he is a Bushite, like it or not. Clinton worshippers out there, slick Willie fanatics. The slate needed to be scrubbed. If a gas pipeline was to traverse Afghanistan. The invasion was planned before the events of September 11, 2001. In the lead-up to the illegal invasion of Iraq, we were sold to a passel of lies. First, foremost, and mostly absurdly, Saddam Hussein planned to attack America with weapons of mass destruction he did not possess. Hussein had an arsenal of chemical and biological weapons sold to Iraq by U.S. corporations, but these WMDSs are reversed for internal threats. For instance, the Kurds. Hussein used his formidable police state crackdown on the Shia majority and other perceived threats. He had absolutely no interest in attacking America. Iraq was invaded for the sake of Israel. It was invaded in the civilian infrastructure, destroyed in its children, poisoned and murdered for a simple reason. Saddam Hussein held up Palestinian fighters as heroes. He wrote checks to the families of the dead. In 2003, the Iraq invasion was underway. The BBC wrote, the Palestinian Arab Libertarian Front estimated that Iraq had paid out $35 million to Palestinian families since the Kurd uprising began in September 2000. Saddam's avowed support for the Palestinians and his missile attacks on Israel during the Gulf War. We have won him wide backing in the territories. This is real, unstated reason the U.S. government invaded Iraq a second time. It had nothing to do with weapons of mass destruction Bush couldn't find under his desk. Like Hillary Clinton chortling over the brutal anal rape of that bayonet and murder of Gaddafi in Libya, Bush was made a joke out of the finding WMDS in Iraq. His deadpan skit read from the notes had the official propaganda scribblers at the Radio and Television Corporation Association dinner in 2004, roll-licking in laughter. And it's funny because I have seen that. And even, believe it or not, InfoWars did videos. I had those videos out as well. So you can say whatever about Alex Jones. Okay, like him or not, as long as the information has merit, you should always support those areas. Doesn't mean you have to be his buddy, okay? So I'll be very fair. During the 1950s and 60s, Israel conducted a reprisal operations against Syria, Egypt, and Jordan. The admitted tactic was blood cost, killing as many people as possible, supposedly to avert future attacks. The crisis after Egypt should nationalize Suez Canal, the Six-Day War, a war to steal land, and the war of attrition to prevent Egypt from reclaiming the Sinai captured during the previous war. The Yom Kippur War, Egypt and Syria attempted to regain the Sinai and the Golan Heights. The seriously misattributed Palestinian insurgency in southern Lebanon, the so-called Operation Litani, was basically a war designed to steal and divert Lebanon's water to Israel. This invasion is responsible for the formation of Hezbollah and the resultant 1982 Lebanon War to steal more land and set up a security zone, using feeble PLO attacks as a predicate. The First and Second Intifada Yet another invasion of Lebanon in 2006 defeated by Hezbollah, numerous attacks on the civilian population of the Gaza Strip, Operation Pillar of Defense, Operation Protective Edge, and ongoing terror attacks and assassination operations against medics, journalists, and activists. The endless terror campaigns waged by settlers against Palestinians should be also be included. Dare to mention any of this, you will be designated an anti-Semite. So when did Janos become Semites? I read the dictionary. I read the definition. Not these jerk-offs did. And excuse my language, but sometimes I get a little bit insulted. So it is impermissible and will soon be illegal to criticize Israel. It is hatred of Jews to oppose the billions of dollars doled out to the Israeli state year after year without consent of the American people. Among the world's nations, the United States stands out as the most devoted backer of Israel, writes Mark Weber, a scurrilous anti-Semite, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center, one of those quack organizations that thrive on hypocrisy. Right, Morris Dees? With very few exceptions, even those American politicians and media figures who might sometimes criticize a particular Israeli policy are nonetheless vigorous supporters of Israel, not just as a country, but as an empathetic Jewish ethnic religious state. In spite of the occasional disputes over specific policies, the U.S. continues, as it has for years, to provide Israel with crucial military, diplomatic, and financial backing, including more than $3 billion each year in aid. Yeah, so you're getting extorted, Americans, including myself, right? Yeah, absolutely. Benjamin Ginsberg, a Jewish author, The Fatal Embrace, Jews and the State, describes the outsized influence of the Jewish community observations that have undoubtedly tagged him as a self-hating Jew, an extremist in league with white supremacists and other haters. Now that the rational discussion and indisputable facts are synonymous with hate. Since the 1960s, this is what he has to say, since the 1960s, Jews have come to wield a considerable influence in American economic, cultural, intellectual, and political life. Jews played a central role in the American finance during the 1980s, and they were among the chief beneficiaries of that decade's corporate mergers and reorganizations. Today, barely 2% of the nation's population is Jewish. Close to half of the billionaires are Jews. The chief executive officers of the 3 major television networks and the 4 largest film studios are Jews. Are owners of the nation's largest newspaper chain and the most influential single newspaper, New York Times. This role and influence of the Jews in politics is equally marked. Interesting there. Many of them are dual citizens, and if you notice that, it's very dangerous. Like I said before, John Jay and George Washington warned us about foreign influences being dangerous to our nation. So I will continue on here. Our republic. It's disturbing to witness the almost complete lack of interest on the part of the American people to put an end to the American involvement in Israel's war, fought and paid by the clueless U.S. citizens. In the past, it was primarily the left that opposed U.S. wars and interventions. Now, many on the left, previously opposed to Republicans, President Bush's invasions, believe this psychopathic behavior is somehow wedded to democracy and humanitarianism, especially if the wars were waged by Democrats such as Barack Obama. That is, if the average propagandized American bothers to think about war at all. This disappearing act is only possible because the left, what I call the establishment left, is on the short leash and know not to bite the hand that feeds with grants and stipends. Beyond a small number of principled leftists and libertarians, there is virtually no opposition to Americans fighting and dying in Israel's war. But that silence is hardly enough. Now the state is looking to prosecute anti-Semites, aka critics of Israel, and a hijacked U.S. foreign policy. Yeah, that's why I told everyone on my past show about Florida House Bill 741 is null and void. That's right. Thank you, Chip LaMarca, the boys, and Gary Farmer for choosing poorly, and Governor DeSantis going to Israel and signing it into law. It's null and void, gentlemen. Prove me wrong if you dare. You can't. If you call me an anti-Semitic, you just lost the debate. I'll continue on here. Fox News, on Wednesday, President Trump signed an executive order which broadened the federal government's definition of American Semitism to include a National Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition, which includes criticism of Israel, and instructed to be used in enforcing against discrimination on colleges, campuses under Title VI. So the magic lamp theory. Bing! That's right, the magic wand theory does work, right? Please. The working definition of anti-Semitism put out by the International Remembrance Alliance states manifestations might include the targeting of the state of Israel perceived as a Jewish collectivity. Moreover, discussing and criticizing the victimization of the Palestinian people by the Israeli state is anti-Semitism. The denying the Jewish people their right to self-determination. Well, the Jews have the right to defend themselves. Come on, give me a break. E.g., by claiming that the existence of the state of Israel is a racist endeavor, is also described as hatred. Actually, Israel was a chartered nation approved by the United Nations. Alright? And the saddest thing about this, folks, the rank and file from both sides, people who are actually Israeli Jews and Palestinians that are Jews as well, and across the board, they're all getting shafted from this. Okay? Just to let you folks know. I want to, and I say that in good faith, and I want to continue on here. There is no paucity on facts of this later point. Last year, Israel passed what can only be regarded as a national race law that designates all non-Jews as second-class citizens. From now on, two types of blood exist in Israel, Jewish blood and non-Jewish blood, on the law books as well. Writes Gideon Levy for Herodes, Hitler's racism was also based on blood. Hoo-hoo! This is what it says here. The price of these two types of blood is also different. Jewish blood is priceless. It must be protected in every possible way. Non-Jewish blood is terrifyingly cheap. It can be shed like water. A situation that existed until now, only de facto with different standards and punishments for Jews and others, is from today by court decree. 70 years of nationalism and racism toward the victims is now receiving its appropriate legal banking. The nation state law, which they said was only declarative in the correct interpretation of Jerusalem District Court Judge Moy Derori, has earned its true meaning, the basic law for the superiority of Jewish blood. From now, Israel has a race law. So, interesting there, they're actually implementing the Talmud to its fullest with the Israeli judicial system. I'll continue on here. This race law is apparently okay with touchy-feely establishment liberals, while at the same time they rail against imaginary racism by toxic white males against state-sanctioned protected groups based on skin pigmentation and sexual orientation. As for the real lefties, most prominently Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, and Rashida Tlaib, they know Israel is a racist state. Will, of course, eventually be removed from Congress. Although I disagree completely with their proposed solutions to principal political and social problems. I agree with the Squad on Israel in its violent ethnic cleansing, assassination of activists, murder children, and arrogant demand an economically besieged American public not only pay for it, but keep their mouths shut if they disagree, lest they find themselves in prison, forever as marked as an anti-Semitic, a media-exaggerated version of Hitler and the Nazis. And I have to agree with Kurt Nemo on this. I'm not crazy about the Squad's a lot of their actions either. However, with this particular subject, they're right. Okay? Ilhan Omar, she's a globalist hack. But on this one, I have to agree, because if you look up HR 1111, it's called the Peacebuilding Act. HR 1111. You'd be surprised she co-sponsored it. It's a very, very new world order indeed. So it's like a lot of faction game here. They said, accept it, shut up and accept it. Well, here's the thing. They're not my daddies. They're not my role models. They're not my Lord and Saviors. My actions and everyone else's actions around the world have natural born rights, with no exceptions. And this is why I gotta give Mr. Nemo homage on these areas. And it's cute because I can say this, a couple of quotes here. These are ones about, all the bogus laws and all that. It would be absurd to say that Congress may do what they please. That's by James Madison. And one more. As free people claim their rights as derived from the laws of nature and not as a gift of their chief magistrate, Thomas Jefferson. So you know what? The 2 articles I read, they said we have to have mandatory health care. Null and void. Executive order, unconstitutional and void. With no exceptions, no refutals, done deal. Those are the facts, my friends. Free speech is a natural right. These BDS laws, anti-BDS laws, even having in certain states, including Florida, invalid. Prohibit it. All you gotta do is read. Don't be afraid to call these people out. I don't care if you're Judaic by faith, doesn't matter what your creed is. If you support freedom, you fight it. Be the Haim Solomons of the world, or the Merrick Edelmans, true mavericks that were Jewish, that fought tyranny. Be like them, not the clowns in politics. All they do is shoot their mouths off, think they're smarter than everybody else because they're lawyers and they're elected servants. They think they're masters, but they believe they're servants. Not including Ted Deutsch. He's in my district, not my congressman. And that's the damn truth. So stay vigilant. Keep on fighting the good fight. Don't worry about them coming down, because I'd rather die free than live as a slave. And that is it. I'd like to thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share us throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or something that's interesting you want to check out, whatever you do, please send your correspondence with decorum. Furthermore, I will leave the footnotes on my Spreaker page for this episode. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love. And may your guardian spirits be with you.